Okay, last but not least, Jana with dVIN. I'm so excited to welcome you up on stage. Talk to us about real asset-backed NFTs.
Hi. All right, so Divya, that was awesome. Thank you so much. And I know that one of the things you talked about is founders, how do you solve a problem? Well, I'm going to talk to you today about an industry that I think really, really needed a blockchain solution. Okay, so my name's Jana. I'm one of the founders of dVIN, and what dVIN is doing is we are basically building a new operating system for the luxury wine market on chain. All right, so usually when I start these kind of talks, I make sure that everybody has a glass of wine. We're going to do that after. So there's a QR up here. If you guys want to scan it and then come see me after this talk in the back, there's a bar over there. I'm going to be pouring champagne and answering any questions that you have. So, yeah, champagne. I know. Okay, so yeah, we're here today to talk about real-world applications of blockchain, right? Okay, well, wine is a pretty real-world thing, as it turns out, but it's different. If you think about RWA, right? Wine is different because it's RWA meets IRL. All right, so it's different than RWA like a bond or a bar of gold that's sitting somewhere in reserve, right? So we're talking about a bottle of wine that is worth something. It's collectible and it's rare for this use case. Okay, and you're actually opening that physical bottle of wine with hopefully someone you like, physically in person. Okay, and so that's really interesting for a whole bunch of reasons, but there's just a lot of issues in the wine industry, the way it works right now, where there's no connection between the winemaker and that person who's pulling the cork, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about DePIN and touch on a few different points, but first I'm going to explain how the wine industry has worked for 1,000 years, okay? We need a breath of fresh air and we need some data. So traditionally, the way the industry works, my background is very much in wine. I came into tech, no kidding, 2.5 years ago. Holy shit. Traditional wine background, okay? And so the way the wine industry works is when you're in the luxury space, you've got wineries in Bordeaux and Burgundy and Champagne and Napa. And when a wine leaves the estate, it travels 5 layers through the supply chain, typically, right? And then it'll usually trade on the secondary market 3-4 times statistically, all right? The problem is the winemaker loses all visibility after the first point of sale, which is crazy because that leaves them with no power of decision making, right? So let's introduce blockchain and talk about DePIN solutions, right? So imagine you can now track a bottle of wine from grape to glass, all right, all the way through the supply chain. And now, what happens when that bottle of wine is opened, right? It's a consumable product. So why do we want to tokenize a consumable product? Well, the winemaker wants that consumption data, right? So let's track the bottle. Let's connect a piece of hardware onto the bottle, right? Create a digital asset for each unique bottle of wine, an NFT, right? A digital product passport, if you will, in Europe. And you create that digital twin to the physical asset. You connect a piece of hardware, you know, RFID, NFC, whatever it is. You track that wine through every point of the supply chain. And then when the end consumer pulls the cork, you want to incentivize that person for pulling the cork to share their consumption data, right? We talk about data and privacy and anonymity in blockchain, but if you incentivize that end consumer to share their consumption data, what the winemaker has never had access to, not in 1,000 years, right? They're operating with a clipboard and a piece of paper right now. I kid you not. And so if you incentivize that person to share their consumption data, this is great for a whole bunch of reasons, okay? So now you've got, the winemaker has all this information about who his truest fans are, and he's actually able to, you know, acquire new customers, direct to consumer. That's a big benefit for a winemaker. But he's also able to actually create now a brand loyalty program, right? When you talk about Web3 and brand loyalty, that's a huge topic. So how do you incentivize the person to share their consumption data? Cryptocurrency. So dVIN is about to launch our own native token in September, and the idea behind it is that it's actually going to be the fuel for the entire ecosystem of the luxury wine industry. So the winemaker will now, before that bottle leaves the cellar, embed crypto into every single bottle of wine. How much crypto? Depends on how much the data is worth to them, right? And now that bottle goes through the supply chain, and at the end, the person pulls the cork, they tap the bottle, right? A little thing pops up on the screen, super user-friendly, actually very Web 2 front-facing, and it says, do you want to open this bottle? Yes. Digitally uncork. Are you sure? Yes. Okay. Now your digital twin is destroyed, and it turns into something called a tasting token, which is basically just a POAP, right? It's a proof of experience that you tasted that wine, and it's non-transferable. At the same time, the crypto is released into your account. We don't say wallet. This is very similar kind of to what Divya was saying, right? We want this to be very adoptable and user-friendly. So anybody who is engaging with this technology, and we're working with Deloitte, actually, they're gonna go out and do the installations at all of the wineries. It'll be like having an account. This is your account with dVIN, or this is your account with the winery, and in the end, we will sort of disappear into the background and become like Stripe, right? And take a little piece of every transaction that happens. We're not looking to be a big brand that everybody knows about. We're building a base layer for everybody else to build on top of. And so we launched 2.5 years ago, and we think that as we go, the first thing that we did was we built the digital cork and the tasting token, and then we built a little private club, and that's closed now for new members. It's kind of our sandbox that we use to test the technology. It was a really interesting, fun project to build and just see, you know, how do we get people who are absolutely not crypto native, not Web3 native. We're talking about some of the biggest wine collectors in the world, right? Oftentimes these people don't, you know, they don't even remember their password for their email account, right? So Web3 can be very intimidating. And so we made it very, very user-friendly on the front end, and it's been working very well. And I want to keep this kind of short, so I want to take a couple questions here and then get everybody a glass of champagne in the back. But I do want to say we're really excited to be building the currency and launching that with Solana in September. So go Solana.